What's up guys, Mudblood here. Today I'm gonna be doing a build guide on my Uber Trist farmer in Project Diablo II. A quick build introduction to this. I use it to farm mini Ubers for the organs and Uber Tristram for torches and black soul stones. Um, in regards to the mini Ubers, I can face tank them no problem. I pretty much never use any potions doing them. And it takes me around 2 minutes per mini Uber, including finding them. That's the average time. Obviously, Isuel is much quicker than the other two, so the 2 minutes is. If I were to open 3 key sets in one game, it would be around a 6 minute game for me to do all 3 mini Ubers in that game if I skip trash and so on. And in regards to Uber Tristram, that takes me around 6 to 7 minutes for a full Uber Tristram, and I use around 5 to 10 full rejuvenation pots on an Uber Tristram. So not a lot, to be honest. If you do like me and farm the organs yourself, you're gonna sustain rejuvenation pots just by doing that. You won't need much more. Um, so let's get into it. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the skill distribution for the build. I'm playing a Zeal Paladin for this, and as we can see, uh, the main prio, the skills that are not really this this these are the mandatory skills that you kind of need to take. I would definitely recommend that you copy those. You max sacrifice, you max seal, you max Holy Shield, and you max Fanaticism. Besides that, you've got some wiggle room in regards to which skills you want to use, how you want to spend your remaining skill points. For me, I've spent 2 skill points, one in Vengeance and one in Joust, and that's to get the Joust ability. Joust is a kind of teleport skill where you need to target an enemy and your paladin will teleport to that enemy and attack it. For Uber Trist, if you only want to do Uber Trist, I wouldn't recommend taking this skill. I would recommend spending those 2 skill points elsewhere. But if you want to do anything else, I would recommend taking it. It's really, really good for mapping. You can teleport to the ranged backlines of enemies and kill them. And for organ farming, it's also really good to just have that teleport available for a very small investment of 2 skill points. So if you plan on doing anything else but Uber Trist on this character, I recommend you take Joust and just take 1 skill point in it. In regards to what else I've chosen, we are in defensive auras. I've chosen to spend 3 skill points in taking Vigor, because I like swapping to Vigor when I'm running around. You can do it in town. A lot of people like using charge for movement on Paladin. You can't use charge in town. But I also just like using it outside of town instead of charge, because I think charge is a bit clunky to move around with. So yeah, I spent 3 skill points in taking Vigor, and that's completely optional. It's up to you what feels best for you, but that's the way I've gone. And for the remaining skill points, if you spend them in these 3 skills, every 2 base skill points you take in these will give you 1 max rest to the appropriate element for the skill. So resist fire will give you max fire rest, resist cold will give you max cold rest, and resist lightning will give you max lightning rest for every 2 skill points you take yourself in them. For me, you can see I've taken some of each. But I would probably recommend, I think I'll respec and I think I'll dump everything and resist lightning, because currently in my Uber Trist The only dangerous boss is Mephisto. Diablo and Baal are pretty much face rolls. I use maybe 1 to 2 potions on Diablo and Baal, where Mephisto can take as much as 8 or 9 potions, sometimes less. But Mephisto definitely chunks the most when he high rolls his lightning damage. So yeah, I'd probably dump pretty much all of it in resist lightning, but feel out your character, see what you think is necessary. Do you want more max fire rest? Do you want more max cold rest? Do you want more max lightning rest? And this is basically when you've taken everything else, you dump the skill points in these defensive auras to get some passive maximum resistance. So if we move on to the stat points, this is a bit different than most other Diablo 2 builds. A lot of Diablo 2 builds, you just want to take enough strength to be able to carry your gear, and enough dexterity to be able to carry your gear, and then dump the rest in vitality, right? But for this build, of course, you start by taking enough strength to carry your gear, and then you start taking dexterity. You want to take enough dexterity so that your block chance is 75%. As you can see right now, mine is 44, but it's very important that before you start taking the dexterity, you make sure you've taken all of your skill points, you've equipped all of your gear, and you use Holy Shield. So you see here, now I have 75% block chance, and that's because I've dumped some points into dexterity. So you just keep dumping in dexterity until you have 75% block chance with Holy Shield, and then you dump the rest in vitality. And that's pretty much it for the stat distribution. The block chance is really, really good. I definitely recommend you go for max block, which is 75%. Every time you level up, make sure to check your block chance when you have Holy Shield up, because you'll need a bit more dex for every time you level up. So make sure you check that your block chance hasn't fallen from leveling up. If it has, dump a couple points in dex and then go back to dumping in vitality. Let's go to the gear of the character. I'm going to talk about some alternative options on some of the gear slots as well. So let's get into it. For the weapon, I'm using an Ethereal Death runeword in a Berserker Axe. It's kind of a mid-roll. I didn't even use a superior Berserker Axe because a 5-socket Ethereal Berserker Axe is kind of expensive in itself, and I made it pretty early. The runeword itself is pretty cheap. It's pretty much just the Vex that's the cost of the runeword, right? And the base probably cost around as much as the runeword if you want a decent base for it. You definitely want to make it in an ethereal Berserker Axe because it gives the indestructible. There are some alternatives to this. I find it very good for what it needs to do. Of course, the very high budget option for your weapon is Last Wish. The problem with Last Wish is that it doesn't give indestructible and that it's very, very expensive. I think it's around 10 high runes of value you need for it. It's like 3 Yars, a Burr, a Sir. It's very, very expensive. The upside for it is that it gives you life tap on hit. So you have a chance to curse enemies with life tap on hit. And that makes it so you're pretty much immortal as long as you're hitting them. You insta-leech up on any enemy that's cursed with life tap. It also gives level 17 Might Aura, but it's still not as good damage as a Death Berserker Axe, because you can't make it in an ethereal weapon. I do not recommend going for Last Wish. I could probably afford one right now, but it will make your clear speed slower, and if you use this gear setup that I have here, you're not going to use a lot of rejuves anyways in Tristram, and you're going to be pretty safe. I haven't died yet with this build in Uber Trist, and I've done like 50. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend investing 9 extra high runes to slow down your clear speed, just to have a bit more safety and a bit less potion usage. So I'd go for the death. Of course, there are stuff like Breath of the Dying, stuff like that. You can always try it out. I recommend Death Berserk Axe in an ethereal base. For the helmet, I'm using Crown of Ages with 2 sockets. Um, we have a pretty good roll, 14% PDR and 28 all res and almost max curse reduction as well. I just have two 15% attack speed jewels in it to reach the breakpoint that we need. I'm gonna talk about that later in the end of the video. There are some alternatives to this. Crown of Ages is kind of expensive, especially if you want 3 sockets. Of course, you can use stuff like Gaze is a really good option. It gives a lot of PDR, it gives double leech. It's a pretty good helmet. Get some sockets in it with a corruption or a puzzle box, and you're good to go. You can use a Veil of Steel with some sockets in it. There are a lot of different options for this that will work pretty well. Just make sure you overcap your resistances the proper amount and you reach your attack speed breakpoints. The amulet, I'm using High Lords. I definitely recommend this. I wouldn't go for any alternative options. There are some, but the 20% attack speed on the amulet is very valuable, and the deadly strike is also really good. On top of that, you get 1 to all skills, which also gives you some damage output. So yeah, this is my clear recommendation for the amulets, but you could use stuff like Mars, you could use stuff like Metal Grid, but High Lords will pretty much always be better, I think, for this build. For the chest, I'm using a Fortitude. I rolled it pretty badly on the enhanced damage and the all res. I could probably have a better base for it as well, because I have much more strength than what you need for a Dusk Shroud, but it's not really that important. You could get a bit more defense, you could get a better roll, obviously. I rolled max on life, which is really good. But yeah, Fortitude is just a really solid option. You get some all res, you get some damage, you get some life. There's a really good budget option actually in, I think it's called Lionheart, a very cheap 3-socketed rune word. You don't need any high runes, you don't even need like a pole rune. I think the highest you need is like a fell rune. And that's a decent budget option until you can afford Fortitude, and then I would go for the Fortitude for extra damage and extra life, extra all res. It's really good. Also for the maximum lightning res, which is very useful against Mephisto, who I mentioned is the most dangerous of the Uber Trist bosses once you get the build going. For the shield, I 100% recommend Headhunter's Glory. It is so good. You don't need to hit a sick corruption to get 3 sockets, because it rolls sockets naturally. So it's pretty easy to get a 3-socket one. It's not very expensive. And the big thing about this shield is it has the chance to cast level 15 amplified damage on attack. And that is huge. And that's also one of the reasons why I wouldn't recommend going for a Last Wish, because you can't have 2 curses on the target at the same time. So the Last Wish would pretty much mean that you wouldn't be able to use Headhunter's Glory, because it would overroll the life tap all the time, which is the main upside to Last Wish. So you would need to use another shield, and you wouldn't have the amplified damage, which gives you insane damage. On top of that, it has very high flat attack rating, and flat attack rating scales insanely on a paladin like this. And also a nice bunch of resistance. I've just put in 3 perfect diamonds in this shield because you want to overcap your resistance a lot. Of course, I should put in 3 runes just to get 9 extra free all res, but yeah, make sure you use this shield to overcap your resistances, and it's just a very solid option for pretty cheap. The boots, we have Gore Rider. Uh, I think that's just the best option for boots. You get the crushing blow, the deadly strike, the open wounds. It's just a very solid pair of boots. You can up them if you want, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend anything else here. You could use Water Walks or Sandstorm or whatever, but I definitely recommend going with a pair of Gore Rider here. For the belt, I'm using String of Ears. I use this on all the mini Ubers every time I'm mapping, and I use it on Diablo and Bale in Uber Trist. When I'm fighting Mephisto, I recommend swapping to a Thunder Gods for the max lightning res and for the lightning absorb. Because, as I mentioned, when he high rolls his lightning abilities or shotguns you with the charge bolt attack he has, it can hurt a lot. It can really chunk a lot of your HP, even though you're kept on res. But yeah, definitely String of Years for Diablo and Bale, because you can actually steal a lot of life from them. Um, Before this, I was using the Dunkos and I was using Laying of Hands, even on Diablo and Bale, and I was using maybe 30 rejuvenation pots per Uber Twist. Once I swapped to String of Ears and Draculs for Diablo and Bale for that extra lifesteal, I started like pretty much not using potions on Diablo and Bale. I use maybe 1 or 2 potions on them, sometimes 0. So String of Ears for anything but Mephisto. Try to get max lifesteal, try to get it as close to max PDR as you can, and this is just a great, great belt. For the rings, I have BK's set ring for some extra PDR, some extra lightning res, uh, a lot of flat attack rating for a ring, and some ED. It's just a solid option. Of course, you could use the unique BK ring as well for lifesteal, all skills, life. Could use a dwarf staff or some fire absorb in life. There are a lot of good options when it comes to rings. So this slot is very, very flexible. But I definitely recommend for one of the ring slots that you use a Raven Frost. Try to get close to max roll attack rating and try to get high cold absorb as well. Because actually Bale's cold ability, the big cold arrow that he does, it does quite a lot of damage in Uber Twist, to be honest. I think they buffed the damage on it, if I remember correctly. I've done Uber Twist before in the original Diablo and in Season 2 in Project Diablo 2, and it seems like it does more damage than it used to. And then the cannot be frozen is just very good to have on any build. So I'd recommend getting at least a Ravenfrost in one of the ring slots. I've gotten 5 to all attributes corruption on both the Ravenfrost and the BKs. It's just a bit of extra juice and it's pretty cheap. So definitely a Ravenfrost. BK is very flexible. Put whatever you feel like in there. There are a lot of good ring options and a lot of good budget options for the second ring slot as well. The gloves, Draculs, it's the classic Uber Twist Farmer gloves, even from the old Diablo. They don't give life tap on hit in Project Diablo 2, but they still give a ton of lifesteal. They give the increased attack speed, which is very good. Give open wounds, some strength. It's just a very, very solid pair of gloves. And as I mentioned, once I start using these plus String of Years on Diablo and Bale, I pretty much didn't have to use any potions when I fought them. I swapped to Laying of Hands when I'm doing Mephisto. They give same amount of attack speed and they just give some extra damage to demons, so some extra damage and some quicker clear for Mephisto. You definitely don't need this swap. You can just use Draculs if you want to. Uh, I just do it to clear him a bit faster. Um, Could use something like Soul Drainers, which gives minus physical damage reduction to the mobs you attack, but The big problem with those are I don't think they give any increased attack speed if I remember correctly. But if you want to do like a budget option, just get any gloves with 20% increased attack speed, because you definitely want to hit your attack speed breakpoints on this build. And that's pretty much the equipped gear. We have on weapon swap, we of course have the CTA. I have a really badly rolled one. I'm terrible at rolling rune words this season, but it does its job. Of course, you use it to pre-buff in Uber Trist. I like refreshing the buff between each boss, so I'm sure it doesn't run out. You just pre-buff yourself, you cast your Holy Shield, and you're good to go. On top of that, when I fight the bosses, I use Battle Cry to reduce their physical damage resistance and their defense. It's very, very good to keep this up on the bosses. It's a debuff on them, and it just means you kill them faster and you steal more life from them. I definitely recommend swapping once in a while to just cast this, then swap back and keep hitting the boss. As the shield, I just have a storm shield with some diamonds in it to make sure I still have good resistance when swapping, and to make sure I have some extra PDR when swapping so I can swap safely. I think you can use different stuff here, just make sure you're not like going down insanely in resistance when swapping if you want to swap mid-fight. So yeah, just like there's a lot of shields you can use here. I just use Storm Shield to be a bit more safe when I do it. If you use shields with all skill, they will buff the battle cries that you do. So that's something to consider, but I find that it's plenty what I have. So I just want the extra safety on the swap. And going to the charms, if you're not very overcapped on your resistance, generally you want to be at around like 60 to 70 overcap. You actually want more. Wait a second, because I don't have my Uber Twist charms on. I think it's more like 70 to 80. Yeah, 70 to 80 overcap resistances. Mephisto has his Conviction aura, which reduces your resistances. That one isn't that bad. It doesn't reduce them by a lot. I think it's only like 30 or something. I was kind of surprised by that because I thought it would be more. But Bale, he uses lower res as a curse on you, and that lowers your resistances by a whole lot, like 70 to 80, around that. So you want to be very, very overcapped on your resistances on Hell. Um, and if you aren't with your gear setup, you definitely want some resistance on your charms. The easiest way is obviously a good torch and a good Annie. My Annie isn't great. I only have 14 Alris on the Annie. It's good with vitality though and experience gained. But yeah, I have a torch with 20 Alris. And if that's not enough, you want some Alris or some res on your charms for whatever you need, you know? Have 4 Alris here, 6 Alris here, 15 cold res. I have a grand charm with cold res. So you want to make sure that you're kept on resistances when Baal uses the lower res on you. For the remaining part of your charms, once you've gotten all your resistances capped and overcapped the proper amount you want, you just want life, you want maximum damage, and you want attack rating. So charms like, let's see, charms like this one, charms like this one, you can get a lot better than what I have. It's just some self-found stuff. Charms like this. This small charm is probably the best one I have. You definitely want that max damage, attack rating, and life. As much as you can get of that. Start by using self-found charms and then see if you can find some well-priced ones on the trade side or on the Discord if you feel like you need some more juice. Currently, I think I'm pretty done investing in this character because it already does both the mini Ubers and the Ubers very comfortably and at a decent pace, I'd say. So that's the gear. I swap charms for when I do the Ubers to make sure I'm overcapped. When I do mini Ubers and when I do maps and stuff like that, I just swap to a Geats and a charm that gives some extra damage and life. Um, so lastly, I would like to emphasize some stuff that I wish I had known when I built this character, because I was kind of I hadn't played Diablo for a while when I made this character. There was some stuff that I overlooked, some stuff I forgot, some stuff I focused too much on with this character. Um, First of all, like I just mentioned, you definitely want to overcap your resistances by quite a lot. You want like around 150, maybe 160 uh, in your resistances on hill, so that you can still have max res when Ball does his lower res. When you're doing mini Ubers, you don't need to overcap your resistances at all. It's all good as long as you've maxed your resistances here on hill. But for Uber Tristram, you definitely want to overcap them by a whole lot. Besides that, a big, big thing that I missed when I started building this character was the attack speed breakpoints. If you're using a Death's Berserker Axe here, it doesn't give any increased attack speed. So if you have your maxed fanaticism, you still need 60% increased attack speed to hit your max breakpoint if you're using the Deaths. So I have 20% on my gloves, I have 20% on my amulet, and then I have two 15% attack speed jewels in my helmet. Now, I could get an attack speed corruption on the gloves or the amulet to free up a socket on this helmet and just get an enhanced damage jewel in the helmet instead, or some resistance in the helmet instead. So yeah, you just want to hit 60% increased attack speed on the remaining gear you have if you're using the deaths, which I recommend as the preferred weapon. Because your fanaticism will give you a lot of attack speed, and your seal doesn't give attack speed. Okay, but yeah, your fanaticism will give you quite a bit, and yeah, you just want 60% ES besides the deaths. This is very, very important. I didn't have it once I started trying to do the mini Ubers and such. I had pretty good gear. I tried doing mini Ubers and I just couldn't kill them. I couldn't kill Duriel. I think I spent like 15 minutes on a Duriel where I went back and bought my Merc the entire time. And it was terrible. Once I got to the attack speed breakpoint, I just face tanked them and killed them quickly. So definitely get the attack speed breakpoint. If you don't, the build might just not work on Ubers. Um, Besides that, uh, I definitely felt a huge difference when I got to max block. At the start, I didn't invest anything in dexterity. I just dumped everything in vitality once I could wear my gear. And that meant I had like a 20% chance to block or something, if I remember correctly. And by investing some points in Dex, I probably have like invested 100 points in Dex, maybe a bit more. I get to the 75% chance to block, and it is huge. Uh, this is definitely something I recommend for any paladin using Holy Shield, because you don't need to invest that much in dexterity to get to max block, and it's so, so strong. So definitely do that. Don't fall in the trap of just investing everything in vitality, because this will give you way more survivability in general. You'll be very, very tanky with this amount of block chance and a decent health pool. So yeah, definitely do that, I'd say. Um, and I think those were the main pitfalls for me when I made the character. And then I had a thing where I focused a lot on max resistance. I was using Guardian Angel as my armor. I was using Nature's Peace as my ring when doing Ubers. I still recommend using this ring when you're doing maps and stuff, because the Slain Monsters Rest in Peace is really nice for that. But it's not necessary for Ubers at all. Your Oak Sage will die. They don't heal anymore anyways, and the max res, it really isn't important, especially when you're a paladin and can grab max res from your defensive auras here. So don't worry about max res. It's not necessary for doing Uber Trist. It's only necessary for stuff like Declone and Ratma, which this character isn't meant to do. So don't focus a lot on max res. Make sure you cap your attack speed. Make sure you omega overcap your res, and make sure you get max block, and make sure you get a bunch of lifesteal. Then you should be all good. Some PDR is always nice, and besides that, you should be good to go. Even with some of the alternative gear I've suggested, you should be all good. Should be ready to pump some Ubers. As I mentioned, I do it very easily now, so it could definitely be done with less. I don't think like the Annie is very expensive. I don't think that's necessary. I think you can do it with more budget gear. I think you could replace Crown of Ages with a more budget helmet. I think you could replace Fortitude with a more budget armor and still be all good to go. The most important thing is get a Headhunter's Glory. It's very cheap for the amount of power it gives. And then the deaths also pretty cheap for being such a great weapon. Dracul's String of Years, so good. Raymond Frost, High Lords. Get those things and you should be good to go. Then just make sure you cap out on the stuff I mentioned with your charms. It can even be very basic charms like this one to just make sure you have overcapped your res. Okay, so for the purpose of the video, we're gonna do a set of mini Ubers. So we have some key sets lying around in the cube. Gonna mix them. We got Furnace. Usually when I get Furnace as the first portal, I just do that and take the next game, because Furnace is a lot faster than the other two. Israel is both very easy to find and very quick to kill. As you might see in this game, Lilith can be very hard to find. Okay, you won't see it in this game. Oh, I'm still wearing CTA. That's annoying. I fucked up a weapon swap there, so I just had to fix my CTA, and then I did the debuff on Lilith, and now we just face tank her and kill her. I usually need to refresh the debuff once on Lilith, and then we just kill her. Can see the debuff as the little red thing over her head. Kind of looks like a druid spirit ran out there. Can be kind of hard to see when you have amp damage up on her too, because you have like two things over her head, but you'll learn to distinguish the two. And now we just finish her. So you can see it's pretty fast to kill her if you find her quickly, but sometimes it can take like several minutes to find her. Because Matron's Den is quite big and it's kind of a labyrinth, and sometimes she's in the middle somewhere and just like trolling you, so can be a bit annoying sometimes when she's hiding, but when you find her fast, it is pretty fast to kill her. Now, with Forgotten Sands, we're looking for Duriel here. And usually Duriel is easier to find than Lilith, but it takes longer to kill Duriel. It is the most tanky of the three mini Ubers, but it's less dangerous than Lilith. And the trash mobs in here are also in general less dangerous than the ones in Matron's Den. So if you haven't rounded out your build completely yet, Matron's Den will be the place where you have the highest risk of dying. The other two places are pretty harmless, I'd say, but Duriel is just a bit tanky. Just want to keep up the battle cry debuff on her and hope to get some nice procs on the amp damage so it stays up for the main part of the fight. And then you just face tank, because yeah, as you can see, we almost don't lose any health and we just insta-steal it back up. Need to refresh the battle cry here, you can see. Pretty lucky that we got ourselves a combat shrine. Speeds it up a bit. And that's Duriel. We'll take an organ. And then we go to Furnace, and as you'll see here, Furnace is very quick. Sometimes Israel is right at the start, sometimes you have to go a bit in to find him, but it's very quick to find him, and it's very quick to kill him. You just run through here, and there he is. If I find him and I have like an Oblivion Knight nearby, or several Oblivion Knights nearby, I like to just kill them, because they do a curse that slows you and it's a bit annoying. So now we just debuff Israel, and usually one debuff is more than enough, and then he just dies once you swap back over, and yeah, just face tank him. No pots needed, and he dies very, very fast, as you can see. No organ, unfortunately, but that's it. That's a mini Uber game. Alright, so we showcased the mini Ubers for the organ farm. This is how the organs look like. And now we're going to showcase an Uber Trist. You need a Pandemonium Talisman to enter Uber Trist. You get that by mixing 3 organs. It doesn't have to be 3 different organs. You can use 3 of the same. You mix those with a regular key, and you get a Pandemonium Talisman. I just have an empty cube here. I'd recommend that when you start doing this, you fill your cube with rejuvenation potions. Also, maybe you drop a row or 2 of the healing pots and bring rejuvenations instead. Just make sure you have enough to finish the fight. But as I mentioned, I usually use like 5 to 10 rejuves on an Uber Twist now, so let's get into it. We buff up with the call to arms. We do the Holy Shield. We make sure we have Battle Cry ready on our weapon swap. And then we go in and we start by pulling Mephisto. There Mephisto is. He is by far the easiest boss to pull of the ones. And then we just go at it. I actually forgot to bring my... we'll just do the debuff. I forgot to bring my Thunder Gods and my Laying of Hand, and as you can see, we chunk hard when he high rolls the lightning damage. So you have to be ready with the rejuves and just kill him as quickly as you can. With the Thunder Gods we wouldn't chunk as hard, because it will give us 5 max res, but just make sure you stay at a healthy health total. And just don't be cheap with the rejuves on Mephisto. If you need to, you can run away. Oh wow, yeah, okay. So I made a mistake here. Sometimes if you are in a hit animation and you use the weapon swap key, you will not swap weapons, so you have to make sure that you actually swap. I did my battle cry and then I thought I swapped back, but I didn't, so I was just hitting him with the CTA for a while. So let's jump back in. We swap, we do the battle cry, we swap back, and now we have the right weapon set up. And now we just finish him off. We don't care if our Merc dies in here. We just need him for the first part on Mephisto. He's actually kind of annoying on Diablo and Bale. Because they are kind of hard to pull and you want to do them separate. So yeah, it's fine if he dies on Mephisto. He's done his job. We just need him to like give us a bit extra juice for Mephisto. So we cleared up some of the trash from Mephisto. Now we rebuff and then we try to pull. Usually Diablo is easier to pull than Bale. So we go up here. And then we'll try to pull Diablo. Can be quite annoying sometimes. There we go. As you can see, we got him pulled there, and I'm usually pretty liberal with using my superior healing pots on Diablo. Usually when he does that ability, I like to pop one pretty early. But it's rare that I need to use rejuves on him if I just keep the battle cry up. Because we steal so much health with Draculs and String of Years. You can see we've used 0 rejuves so far. Play it a bit safe, like I could have used one there when I dipped below half HP, but we do steal health pretty fast, get back up. But if you want to play it safe, just pop a rejuve once in a while if you dip below half HP. Besides that, it's pretty much a phase roll. We've used 0 rejuvenation potions on him here. And now he's dead. I like to just clear up his ads here. Then we just rebuff and we'll go right into Bale. Now let's just clear up here. And as you can see, he's used his lower risk curse on us here. And now it's gone again because we are using Crown of Ages. Now, it can be a bit dangerous when he summoned his clone. Had to use a rejuve there. I also forgot to put the normal healing pots back in my belt. Usually they work pretty well against Bale because you don't take like huge chunks. But we're fine with just using rejuves here. Right now we are just focusing down the clone because it's kind of annoying to have both the guys attacking you. And the clone is gone. Now we just go back to Bale, we do the debuff, and we should be done in no time. Just do one last debuff and then he'll be dead. Would be nice with a black soulstone drop, but if not, we'll take the standard of heroes and the torch. And that's Super Trist. We used 9 rejuvenation pots there and a few healing pots. I even forgot the Thunder Gods, like this was kind of a scuffed run. I forgot the swap for Mephisto. I even forgot my my rest charms actually. So a bit of a scuffed setup and the weapon swap mistake on Mephisto, but still pretty smooth. Not much to say. We can just ID the torch for some extra juice for the video. That's a pretty bad one. It's 20 all res, but Assassin Torch is not the best. One of the lower value torches you can get. 20 all res is always nice though. So that's the Uber Trist. You've seen the mini Ubers. Let me know if you want to see anything else from this character. I think the next video I'll be talking about if it's actually worth farming Uber Trist and what kind of value you can expect from farming it, since I've been doing it quite a bit now. So that's it. Thank you for watching. See you next time.